Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Right now, we are super excited to welcome from Mycotoo, Chief Creative Officer David Wally and Director of Creative Bonnie Hallman for their talk on why immersive live and themed entertainment dominate. So please welcome them.
Thank you so much, Dominic. Is this thing on? Hello, is this thing on? Technology.
We can hear you. You're on. You're good.
Well, thank you so much to TEA at USC and our friends at Midsummer Screen for inviting us to participate in this panel today. Our topic is the storyteller effect, why immersive live themed entertainment dominate, and what is the role of storytelling and the use of actors and characters to bring that across. I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on Mycotoo and Bonnie and myself. We have extensive backgrounds in film and live theater and location-based entertainment. For the past 10 years or so, we've also gotten into the world of immersive theater and its applications in multiple different facets, including theme parks and large-scale live events and brand activations. So we're going to talk to you guys about all of that kind of stuff today. Watching John Braver's interview earlier this morning, I was taken with a lot of the discussion about what is immersive, what is interactivity. And the way I like to think about it is that film and traditional theater is a very passive experience. You know, we create worlds, we populate them with characters, we design them, we have people sit back and watch the work that we've done. And it's great, and it's wonderful, and it has its place, and it's brilliant. Immersive theater is a different thing. Immersive theater is where we create those worlds and we create those characters, but then we invite the audiences to enter our world and to interact with our world, most importantly, to interact with our characters. So that's just a little bit of difference between the two of those. A little bit about Mycotoo. We are probably known by a lot of the folks that watch Midsummer Scream and come to some of our events for our live entertainment space, which we do very well at. We also develop original entertainment properties and develop the business plans and raise the funds for those, which is a thriving vertical for us. And we also do design services where we'll be hired by clients or partners to work on theme parks, museums, entertainment centers, live events, attractions. So it's those three verticals that comprise of Mycotoo. Mycotoo, a funny little name there, stands for My Company Too, and it really goes to the ethos of what we're all about. We want you to think, if you're our collaborators, our partners, our clients, our employees, our team members, that you're part of our company and that we're part of you. And so as we work together to work on any of these different projects, we want the focus to be on how can we make that project, that production, the best it can possibly be. And so we sort of instill this one team, one dream philosophy to come together. So with that in mind, we're going to talk to you about some, primarily this live entertainment vertical that I talked about and the different case studies of projects that we've worked on. And Bonnie's going to start us off by talking about some of the work that we've done with theme parks.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, we've done a lot of work in, as David mentioned, we have these kind of interactive spaces with brand activations, but we also do a lot of that interactive and connectivity in traditional theme park spaces. First thing that we wanted to chat about was our Lunar New Year that we did up at Universal Studios Hollywood. We've done a lot of work up there at Universal Studios Hollywood, and this Lunar New Year was essentially the Chinese New Year and kind of bringing that celebration into that space and making that space feel immersive and allowing audiences to feel like not only am I sitting down and just watching a theme park show, but I'm actually in the world. And we started to do this. We did this first of all by doing shows with actors, and we also had Mr. Ping, who was a puppet, who was a man puppet that would do personal interactions with guests, but we also had the entire space there that was kind of decorated for the celebration. We had wishing trees in that plaza lobby. I don't know if anyone has ever been to Universal Studios. This was right in what they call the plaza. So you go down the main street and there's kind of this circular space that's in the center of the main Universal hub. We had wishing trees in there that people could write wishes on and hang wishes. We had the beautiful lanterns. And then all around, if I were to stand in the center of the plaza, we had activations that were all around somebody standing right there in the middle. So you really truly did feel like it was all around you, which was a lovely sensation.
One of the things I thought was really cool, Bonnie, is for you as a director on that was that you had to deal with multiple different kinds of actors. You had to deal with puppeteers who had, it's a specific skill set. You had to deal with your actors that were your Megatron who had to speak Mandarin.
Yes.
You had to deal with stage performers that were both fuzzy head performers and live entertainers. And didn't you also have a caricature artist that you had to interact with? So all kinds of different skill sets and different kinds of actors.
Exactly that. It was honestly, I wouldn't say it was the hardest directing gig I've ever had, but it was the most unique, especially with the Mandarin Megatron. I do not speak Mandarin, so it was very much, and Megatron is a character that exists in Universal on a daily basis, and he's usually down on the lower lot outside of the Transformers attraction. Before Mandarin, or for Lunar New Year, we brought him up outside of Poe's Village in that plaza, and it was very much this, and most of the performers spoke English. However, there were a couple that spoke English, but not very well. So I had a translator. Our voice coach, the incomparable David Chen, was not only a voice coach for the actual character, but also spoke Mandarin and Cantonese and French and English. So he's, no louse in the language department. And so what would happen is I would direct in English, he would translate in Mandarin, Megatron would do the action in Mandarin, I would look at David and say, what did he say? Tell me. And then I'd say, no, let's try this. And we'd do the whole thing over again. And it was, we got there and it was great, but it was interesting. And, the other thing too is I would, on days that David, after we opened, on days when David wasn't there, I would just find a family that I knew spoke the language and watch their reactions. And if I got good reactions, I knew he was doing well.
So the importance of having great specialists as partners, and also the need to trust.
Exactly. And letting go, knowing what you can and can't do. I don't speak Mandarin. You have to let go of some of that. So exactly that.
That's awesome.
I want to move on to the next one I think we have is our Jurassic World Raptor encounter. So this again was also up at, this kind of whole section is our work up at Universal Studios Hollywood. And though it says the Raptor encounter, we also included, because Blue the Raptor already existed. So that was one of the challenges there, was how do we take something that already exists and make it feel fresh and new, but still keeping it within the IP. And I'm going to touch on something here that, David, I know you're going to talk about quite a bit, which is how you put characters that don't exist in IP into an IP that everybody in the world knows about. And Jurassic Encounter Jurassic World was one of those very challenging ones, because everyone on the planet at this point had seen the film. And so it was creating and writing, and it brought us into, I know we at Mycotoo are in this very weird space of script writing, where it's like, how do you write original content but still fit within the bounds of the lore of the world? Existing
IP.
Exactly. And also too, for us, this was a very weird one because, we all know Jurassic Park, Jurassic World all take place during the disaster time of that IP. And we obviously in our world are not facing that. So we all had to live in kind of a Groundhog Day of, this is the day before the first movie starts. No one has died at the park. Everything is fine. We have everything under control, which is the company line, the Jurassic World company line. So it was, mixing that, trying to find that area, plus, of course, also working with, the puppeteers who are actually not puppeteers for these. These are Action Horizon stunt guys, because those dinosaurs, we've got Blue there, who's the raptor, and Juliet, who is actually a two-manned dinosaur that has to walk in tandem together. And it was really mixing, trying to direct actors and stunt people with a stunt coordinator, Peter Greathouse from Action Horizons, who was just a godsend and amazing, and trying to get those guys on the same page was it was fun but challenging. Let's see. We can go to the next one. Yes, this was the Jurassic World opening ceremony. So at Universal Studios Hollywood, anytime a major attraction opens, they have kind of an opening press event, if you will, but like opening ceremony press event. And this is usually if there's an actor tied to something, usually the actor will come be a part of it. You know, at Disney when they opened Star Wars, Harrison Ford was there. All, you know, the directors and cast and things were there. And we were very fortunate to get Bryce Dallas Howard and Chris Pratt and Colin Trevorrow, who directed the first film and is a producer of the series. So that was wonderful. The kind of industry secret for everyone to know for these, you never get rehearsal with these folks, ever. And usually you don't know how far they are willing to play. So very often when you're writing and directing these, you're just writing multiple scenarios. So there's the scenario if, you know, Chris Pratt said, no way, I'm not doing anything. I'm standing on a stage silently and then getting my car and leaving. There's the scenario of, okay, I'll do something, but I don't want lines. There's the scenario of, oh no, I'm willing to do anything. And we were very fortunate and he was willing to do anything.
This particular project reminds me of a great line from Zoo's story that sometimes it's necessary to go a long distance out of your way in order to come back a short distance correctly. Because I think you wrote 18,000 versions of this only to finally land on something pretty close to what you had at the beginning.
We did. And I can't tell you, know, the difficult part about working up at Universal is the parks open all day long. So when we do rehearsals, we do overnights. So I can't tell you how many overnights. It was like, okay, let's run this one scenario that may or may not happen. And, you know, it's just part of it. It's all part of the fun. And then in that we don't have rehearsal time, if you guys see, there's that fantastic picture of Chris Pratt kissing the raptor there. That wasn't scripted. We did not know he would do that. So it was an amazing gift for us. We were thrilled for it. It came out and gave us an unbelievable piece. However, as he was leaning down to do it, I envisioned the raptor thrusting his head back and knocking Chris Pratt off of the stage and giving him a bloody nose. And so it speaks to how important it is to get actors you trust, because that raptor could not see what was happening. The actor in front of him is the one who was like, gave the no-go sign, we had all these signs that the actor and the stuntman are communicating to each other, because you obviously can't say, hey, Devin in the raptor suit, don't move your head. So we have all these signs, and our actor who was there at the time, Mark, he took command of the situation and everyone was safe.
I think that, you know, again, this word trust comes up, and whether you're working with a client or a partner for the first time, or you're on your 4th, 5th, 10th production with them, you know, establishing trust and making sure that you've talked through everything and you're on the same page. Again, one team, one dream, right? That you sort of know what it is that we're trying to accomplish, and you know what the variables are that you can anticipate, and that you can then get to the place where they trust you to be able to call the audibles that you always have to call in any live performance. Because if we do any of these projects day after day after day, each and every single day is going to be a completely different presentation, because it has to be. It's the only way it can be.
Exactly.
So you have to be able to trust everybody in the process.
Exactly that. And so this was a fun one, and this was one of those fly by the skin of your teeth the whole time. And if you do exactly what you just said, it all turns out to the best. And then the other one we had over here at DreamWorks was at Universal was the DreamWorks opening event for the theater. So this is the theater that used to be the Shrek 4D theater, but it now holds a Kung Fu Panda attraction. And this was interesting because it was one of the first times, David, you and I worked for a park in, you were working on Bollywood and I was working on DreamWorks for a park in Dubai, Motiongate. I was doing Motiongate, you were doing Bollywood. Mm-hmm. And when I was working with DreamWorks there, DreamWorks was very anti-mix their characters. So Shrek characters were only together and never with any other characters. You know, Kung Fu Panda characters were only together, and
very segregated.
Exactly. And the world doesn't stand for those kind of segregation anymore. So this was a really fun project, because for the first time that I had worked with them, and DreamWorks actually had just been sold at that point we were allowed to mix the characters. So we had a really fun idea because it was already technically a theater. We did a big theatrical opening, and we had the red carpet, and the characters came down and walked the red carpet just like they would at like a Hollywood opening at the, you know, at the theater in Hollywood there. And so that was fun. And it was fun to get all of them in the same place and do kind of this big, it was very meta. It was like a press event of a press event, which was kind of fun. And Mr. Ping was our announcer there. Mr. Ping ended up being such a success, which of course was designed by the Henson studio. And it ended up being such a success. We brought Mr. Ping back actually a couple times outside of Lunar New Year. We did it during the summer once, and he was a lot of fun. And he actually, going to that bizarre new form of script writing, he was one that we did a lot of learning on, because you just, you know, it's all improv, but you have to fit within the bounds of the IP. And so we, instead of actually scripting things, you give the performer and the puppeteer what's called prompts. So if, you know, and also if you have to think about what Universal Studios guests would be. A lot of them are dressed in Harry Potter garb. A lot of them might be dressed like minions, those kinds of things. So obviously Ping in the world doesn't know what those are, but he can kind of speak to them. Instead of saying you're dressed like a minion, he can say you're dressed like a banana, because Mr. Ping knows what a banana is, and that can start a conversation. However, the one thing that did happen with Mr. Ping is someone proposed in front of Mr. Ping to their girlfriend, and I had not written a proposal prompt. And so I got green with the actor. I was like, oh, that's something I guess we have to look at. So later when we did Donkey at Universal Studios, we gave them proposal prompts just in case. So yeah, this one was a super fun one. I think that kind of wraps our time up at Universal Studios.
And again, we're very grateful to all of our partners up there at Universal. They've been very great to work with. We also redeveloped their special effects stunt show up there, and all their team members have just been a dream to work with.
Oh, absolutely. There's no one we'd rather be with at the lot at 3 a.m. in the morning and an overnight.
As we move into seasonal events, we'd also like to give thanks to our friends at Urban Commons and the Queen Mary and Epic Entertainment, who we've worked with extensively over the years, past 10 years. And we'll talk you through some of the big events that we've worked on with them and how they've changed over the years. I know a lot of you are familiar with Dark Harbor. Dark Harbor in many ways is the OG entree into the immersive theater experience. When I was first asked to work on this, I truly had no idea what I was getting into. I didn't understand the Halloween events. I didn't understand Queen Mary. I didn't understand the event that existed before, or what actors were supposed to do. How do you teach somebody to say boo? Oh, you don't say boo? Okay, got it. But in working on it, what I found was so cool was that we were creating this big, expansive, almost operatic world. And we were taking these performers and we were having them intersect in the same physical space with the audience. And, you know, I thought I was doing this really cool thing, but I just stumbled my own way into what immersive theater truly is. And once I figured out that's what it was, it became one of the most fun experiences I'd ever had. Bonnie and I started that together back in 2010. And we just had our 10th season this past year. Unfortunately, this year, due to all the fun things of 2020, Dark Harbor, along with most live entertainment's not happening. So we're talking to you guys by way of this panel. But over the years, we've had thousands of actors who've performed at Dark Harbor. We've grown it from being a couple of mazes and rock and roll bands to being 6, sometimes 7 mazes, and 2 to 3 performance spaces that have dazzling entertainment that, you know, is worth the price of admission by itself, and creating these different hangout areas and bars and RIP spaces that guests can just sit back and enjoy the experience. And you know, every single person that we work with there is so special to us, and they're like family members. You know, we've probably gone through thousands at this point of actors over the past 10 years, and, you know, probably several dozen to maybe 100 or so have been there all or most of the 10 years. So it's truly a great experience, and we love working on it every year.
I like to call Dark Harbor the little haunt that could.
Yeah.
Every year we've got just we're always lower budget. We're always whatever it is, budget, weather, time, and we just find a fantastic show there.
And one of the things I've been most proud of is that we've been able to up our game every year and bring in great new collaborators from, Tom Clough and Jeff Scheffelbein at the beginning, to J.J. Wickham and the time that she spent there designing, to then bringing in John Cook and John Autopsy to work on events there. It's just been a great ride. Some of the other key collaborators I would be remiss to not mention: Adam Conger and Stephen Taylor, who have built and run this thing for the past 10 years. Katie Brisbois, who's done costumes since the beginning. Christina Coffrin to Jeffrey Alexander on makeup, which is such a clutch part of our event. And, our brilliant actors who've played the Ringmaster and the Captain and the Voodoo Priestess along the way, or Scary Marys. Just family. We love them.
Completely.
Alice in Winterland was another very interesting and great experience for us. It was actually a strange experience for us when we were asked to do this. Our Alice in Winterland experience took place in the dome that used to house the Spruce Goose, that now is completely used for Carnival Cruise Lines. And for the first couple of years of Chill, they had a big tent that had ice sculptures in it. And this particular year, I want to say it was 2016, there was new ownership of the ship, and it was determined that they were not going to have an ice kingdom. And yet they were still going to have this event, and they sort of had this big hole in the middle of it of what was going to be the big wow. And we were asked to come on and put something together for that. So we designed and fabricated and installed and ran this entire attraction within the confines of the larger Chill event. So it was sort of, we had to use different skill sets as we were suddenly working in a different capacity with our friends that we'd been working in another capacity with at Epic Entertainment on this thing. But fortunately, we're all good friends and good collaborators and good partners, so we were able to do that effectively. But this was just a beautiful 14,000 square foot walk-through attraction. Bonnie, you can talk a little bit about what else we did on this.
Yeah, I mean, just like you were saying, it's that beautiful walk-through attraction. You went down the rabbit hole, and it was our retelling of the Alice in Wonderland story, or Alice in Wonderland story, but through the eyes of a very beautiful, Christmassy, wintry environment. And we had, I think one of the coolest things that was the most guest-pleasing was the RFID element in this one. This is where you could purchase a hat or actually a martini glass or a mug, a drink mug with an RFID chip in it, and that RFID chip would activate different things throughout the space. So this also, and I know you will talk about our kind of the different kinds of audiences that go through these immersive experiences probably when we get to the activations area. But this was very much kind of a first step into understanding the different kind of audiences. Oh, there are the people who are going to buy every RFID thing imaginable and experience it that way. And then there are people who are going to be like, nope, not interested. I just want to go through and kind of wander about on my own. And how you speak to those different kinds of audiences. I think this is one of our first dips of our toe in that water, and realizing that there are different people who go through these with different wants and needs.
A couple of hat tips on this one. The brilliant designer Daniel Hirsch, who designed this attraction, Steve Merbarger, who along with Phil Martinez practically built the whole damn thing with their own two hands, Mary Clough, who produced this thing and did a great job, and Matt Systems, who provided all that RFID technology. A great team on this.
I'm not sure if it's still there or not, but at one point on our website, the Mycotoo website, there was the time lapse of this being built. If you can find that, it might be on the interweb somewhere. If you can find that, it's a pretty cool thing to watch. Just watch that dark dome essentially build up into this gorgeous lit attraction.
There have been times I've worked hard in my life, this last quarter being one of them, of where you were just on fumes at the end, but getting Alice in Winterland to the opening doors was one of the hardest physical things I've ever done in my life. I literally slept about 2 hours collectively over a 4-day period, where it was just, I was vacuuming at 5 o'clock in the morning.
I had a video of you, David Wally, vacuuming the opening carpet. And we opened doors in probably 2 hours. And I was like sticking candlesticks in something and you were vacuuming a carpet.
I finally, somebody made me go lie down like in the dressing room area on a disgusting couch that was like half covered in crap. And I got like maybe a half an hour in, and somebody, they literally, they could not move forward unless they spoke to me about the thing. And there was this entire conversation about who was going to wake me up and how I was going to respond to it. I don't know what this fear is that I instill in people, but everything was fine. I was just groggy.
That's funny. Yeah, this was a special attraction. It really was.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, Warner Brothers Horror Made Here. Yeah, this was actually this was our first year that we had to divide and conquer, because usually we're both kind of all, you know, balls to the wall for Dark Harbor, and this year, which was not last year but the year before, we were asked to come in and do Horror Made Here. We designed and built 2 of the mazes, the Arkham Asylum and the It maze, and then we also ran talent. So we helped with casting and basically ran operations and ensured that, you know, all your characters are in the right place at the right time and saying the right things, and basically wrote scripting for characters.
It's very interesting. There's these different verticals I talked about. There are times where we design and build everything and we have nothing to do with the actors. There are times where we just deal with the actors and we have nothing to do with the design build. And both Alice in Winterland and Horror Made Here were both 2 examples of us using both sides of the company to get our work done.
Exactly that. This was a fun one because unlike Dark Harbor, it presented its own kind of pros and cons with the IP. Because with Dark Harbor, it's our IP, and we have kind of a little bit more leeway to come and do what we want and what we think will be scary and cool. With Horror Made Here, we are very much beholden to the IP, which was great because they're great IPs and people know them. But because people know them, we had to be very cautious about how we proceeded and what people said and did, and it was a lot of fun, and we had a great collaborative spirit with the WB team. Danny Kahn and all those guys over there. Michael Crony, and it was a lot of fun.
It's interesting in that you know, these last 3 we talked about, you know, all the work you did up at Universal, having to deal with IPs, dealing with DreamWorks. Can they touch each other or not touch each other? These different IPs at Horror Made Here. This is kind of a classic haunt in that you've got different IPs in different houses that exist within the same thing. One of the interesting things that we have at both Dark Horizon, which we'll talk about in a sec, and Dark Harbor, but specifically Dark Harbor, is that we've created one story that it creates the world for the entire event, which is very, very uncommon in the haunt world. And I think one of the things that makes Dark Harbor so special, you know, having that ship in the background as a backdrop, that glorious ship, and then having all of these characters that really are parts of the same world. You're just visiting different little pieces of it. Conversely, with Warner Brothers, the wonderful challenge is that you have these incredibly well-known IPs, and then you're sort of measured on your ability to deliver on them.
Yeah, exactly that. And it caused, you know, it's very tough for casting. You know, we had very specific guidelines for who could wear what costume. You know, Jason's had to be 6'3" and over. I had plenty of guys who wanted to be Jason who just didn't have the height. You know, we had girls who would be amazing Georgies from It who were too tall. You know, it was interesting too, and something we didn't talk about that kind of happened a little bit on our on the dinosaurs, with the walking dinosaurs for Jurassic World. We had a couple guys audition who kind of reminded people of Chris Pratt, and so we couldn't cast them because we didn't want anyone to think we were trying to say, look, this is Chris Pratt. And we were recreating Chris Pratt's character. It had to be a character that's within the IP, but not the main character. So it was very interesting.
I thought one of the really clever differentiators here for Horror Made Here was exactly that, right there in the title. Warner Brothers Horror Made Here, a Halloween haunt on a studio backlot, you know, and to sort of lean into that and know that this is the place where the horror films are made, and to really lean into, you know, using the costumes that were used from the costume department, you know, and masks that might have been actually used in productions, and putting mazes in backlot sets, you know, that could actually be used to make movies. I thought that really, it made Horror Made Here this very special, singular kind of production that was fun.
It really was a gem. And, you know, in that same vein, we had an Arkham maze with the actual Batmobile outside of it. You know, that's a piece of movie history that usually you'd have to go to a museum to see. And it was right there in a haunt that you could, you know, take a picture this far away from, which was fun. Our next, yes, Unto Dark Horizon. Take us to Florida, David.
Yeah, so last year, with our friends at Epic Entertainment and Urban Commons, we decided to do a sister production to Dark Harbor called Dark Horizon. And this was the fruition of a plan that, you know, took years to develop, to get all the pieces in place. And it was very, very challenging. We mounted the production on the parking lot of a Holiday Inn that used to be the Nickelodeon Hotel, over sort of by where Disney Springs is. And we sort of created an L-shaped event where we had 2 stages, an aerial stage, a fire stage, and 3 haunted houses, and several different themed bars that people could hang out in a VIP area. And it was about half the size of Dark Harbor in scale and footprint and number of monsters and everything. But it was really an exceptionally wonderful Halloween event. We brought out several of our key players from Long Beach. Brad Hills, who plays the captain, came for us to play Bloody Watson, who's based on a real serial killer from the turn from the 19th to 20th century. Burdetta Jackson, the incredible Burdetta Jackson, brought her fire team and split them in half, and left half behind in Long Beach and brought half of them with herself to Orlando. And some of our other key players, Peggy McGee, Liz Waters, Maggie Vaughn, shared the role of Captain Killigrew, who was the female captain of our pirate ship. I must say, one of the things I've really loved about both Dark Harbor and Dark Horizon is the protean amount of female power behind both events. You know, one of our producers, Charity Hill, is a domino of a woman. Our designers have been women. My team, other than me, is 90% populated by strong women who can, and down to the cast where, you know, both the Ringmaster and Fire Priestess were not originally written to be women when they were first created, but in discussing what we wanted the character to be and the best actors for it, they became female-centric characters. Although Ringmaster is sometimes played by a female, sometimes played by a male. And Captain Killigrew, making her a female pirate, was also very clutch to us. So I've just always loved the diversity of our casts and our thinking and our productions on both Dark Harbor and Dark Horizon.
Agreed. I think the other thing that Dark Harbor really kind of spoke to me with is because we brought a lot of our team there, we brought our builders there. I mean, we cast and we found local talent as well, but it made a lot of our people went over there, and it was like, oh, it really is. The secret sauce really is us, and it's our team that we trust, and we know that we can do this no matter where we are. You know,
when 2 years ago when we did Horror Made Here in Dark Harbor, it was sort of easy because we had developed Horror Made Here together while we were figuring it out and everything. And then when it came to, you know, okay, balls to the wall, now we have to mount these 2 productions, you know, tag you're it and trust you implicitly to go off and do Horror Made Here was a no-brainer. And, you know, we surrounded you with good people who were great, and I still had good people down at Dark Harbor that was great. Last year with Dark Horizon, Bonnie was pregnant with her wee little girl, Scarlett, who's now about 7 months old.
7 months.
7 months old. So, and I couldn't be in Long Beach and Orlando at all times, nor could any members of our team. So we really had to break the Dark Harbor team in half and put some people in one place, put some people in another place. And I played an executive director role, which was both challenging for me and wonderful for me in that I was able to entrust the majority of Dark Harbor to Arroya Carrion, who'd been with us for years and who did a great job leading that event when I wasn't there. And with Dark Horizon, I was able to share the directing duties and entrust running it to David Ruzicka, who's a wonderful creative who's worked with us on multiple productions. And David and one of our other writers, Alice, worked with us. Our wonderful charity informed us one day that she had created something called Terror Up. That was this immersive event that was going to run through Dark Horizon, and guests were going to go on these adventures and they were going to do this stuff and blah, blah, blah. And we said, great, what is it? She said, oh, I don't know. I've just told everybody that we have it. We got to figure out what it is. So our team worked with Epic to create what that thing was. And major credit to David and Alice, David in particular, who had to then run with it and explain it to different actors every night what was encapsulated. But it was a great underlay to the event that audiences really, really loved, and it was a very special beat. We had one wonderful critic who came by and walked through Dark Horizon, and about halfway through the event, we said, by the way, we have this thing called Tear Up. Would you like to participate in that? And he was like, sure. Yeah, great. I'd love to. And he ended up writing 2 different reviews for the event. One just talking about what Dark Horizon was, and then like a week later, just talking about the Tear Up experience and how unique and singular it was. So another thing that made Dark Horizon very special, along with all of the wonderful local talent there. We really loved being in Orlando last year.
I think that speaks to how important it is to know how smart audiences are getting, and when we can get, especially in this immersive space, immersive audiences are one of the smartest audiences, and they're one of the audiences that expect the most detail, and so those details like that really, really help drive home and make things feel special.
We always talk about there's the waders, the swimmers, and the deep divers. Tear Up was for the deepest of deep divers, and again, Dave did a great job with that.
Great.
Brand activations. So I think it was 2017 or so. This man, our director of HR at the Queen Mary, this wonderful woman named Jessica, called me up and said, hi, I have this friend and he wants to do an event, and he knows that we do Dark Harbor, and he wants some of our actors. But I don't know what he wants. Can you call him? And I said, sure. And I got on the phone with him, and we spoke for about an hour, and he said, I think you're what I need. And his name is Patrick Jong, and he works for this incredible company, Giant Spoon, who we'll talk about a lot during this. And they were doing an activation at Comic-Con that year for Blade Runner 2049. And as we were starting at the beginning of this, I really, truly didn't, just like starting it with Dark Harbor 10 years before, right, is I didn't have a sense of what the ask was. I thought, are we going to have characters like on a convention floor that are going to be like trying to get people to come into a booth, or what is it? And what it was something quite extraordinary. They were going to build, and did build, this gigantic tent across the street from the convention center. And within that tent, the guest experience was guests would line up and they'd come in and they'd walk down a hallway that had pictures and posters from the movie. And then they'd enter this small little narrow theater that had 2 rows of seats. They'd sit down, they'd put on these VR goggles, and they would watch a 3-minute VR where they would be in a spinner, a flying car, and they'd rise up into the sky and they'd chase this other spinner that was ahead of them like they were police. And then the spinner ahead of them would crash down in the ground and start smoking. And then a sign would say, you can take your goggles off. And what happened was, when they took their goggles off, before they started, there was this wall in front of them. And then once they took their goggles off, the wall had lifted up. And in front of you in that photo in the top left was this spinner that they'd just seen in the VR that was smoking. And you had all of these characters who were wearing costumes, as you can see below, that were literally costumes from the film, that came up and started interacting it. And you as guests were then able to get up out of your seats and enter this experience where you literally were it was as if you were entering the world of Blade Runner. And anybody who knows the film knows that it's always raining. You know, we had a rain curtain that guests could pass through, and they came across this noodle bar that's very specific to the IP, and all of these vending machines that you can see in that lower right picture. And, you know, they could interact with these different characters. Sometimes there was thoughts that there might be a replicant among us that the police would chase. You could get pulled to the side to see if you were a replicant or not. At these vending machines, you could get a T-shirt or a poster from the movie. And then they had a little noodle bar where you could get samples of noodle. And it was sponsored by Johnny Walker. And you could go, if you were 21 or older, you could go into the little bar and do a flight of Johnny Walker drinks. And then you could go out there. And the dwell time was, you know, until it started to get, you know, beyond critical mass. And then we would send one of our replicants running through the space and cops chasing them. And the other cops would then tell everybody they needed to flood the scene so that we could, very signs of Portland, make everybody get out of there so we had room to bring more people in. And one of the things that was interesting on this one was, you know, our experience working on this event, our experience of getting to know Patrick and the rest of the Giant Spoon team and figuring out who did what was one of the things early on. It was, I think, the first one that Giant Spoon had sort of done at this scale as well. So both companies were figuring this out together as we were working in collaboration with them. Is that then there was a component to the operations of it, of just how did you get people through it fluidly to get the most people to experience? And we were able to help out in that aspect as well, working with them. And by the time we were done, suddenly we had, you know, all of this, you know, wonderful feedback online and in reviews and everything like that. And it really opened our worlds to our Mycotoo world, to this world of brand activations that we had not even known was a possibility. But one of the things that we loved about it was everything that we loved. You know, we had to create some kind of world that could exist that mirrored Blade Runner 2049. We weren't allowed to see the movie ahead of time. We weren't allowed to talk to anybody, you know, so we had to sort of, you know, study the original film and study the director's other work and know what assets were available to us and craft a story that seemed like it might make sense and, you know, get both Giant Spoon as our direct clients and their client, Alcon Entertainment, to buy off on it, you know. And on this first one, there's, I think, a lot of nervous people until, you know, in downtown LA where they were building the set. We went on the set as it was getting its final touches, and we brought in our actors and the costumes and our makeup designers, and we sort of did a dry run for all of the executives. And, you know, in about a 2-minute period, you could just see all of the stress just evaporate and smiles take their faces. And, you know, going back to that word I talked about at the beginning, we had trust. And I think moving forward from that point, you know, I think the IP holder trusted Giant Spoon Spoon trusted us, we trusted our actors, and everybody was able to do their jobs and create something extraordinary. Exactly that.
I mean, and to be fair to everybody, this was so new. No one had done anything like this right now. Now these kind of world building and brand activations are pretty, I don't want to say common because they're still very exciting and it's still kind of the Wild West out there for them. But we didn't know what we were doing and we figured it out just on the fly.
And then I think that probably, if I'm not mistaken, takes us to, you know,
speaking of Wild West.
I mean, I've worked on a lot of wonderful things in my life. I've worked on 3 films that were seen by millions of people. I've worked with my partners at Mycotoo. I've helped design theme parks, worked on Dark Harbor for 10 years, incredible experience. But the Westworld experience for me personally was probably one of the greatest things experiences I've ever had. Again, it was our friends at Giant Spoon, Patrick Jong, who I told you about, came to see Dark Harbor that year, just a couple of months after Blade Runner, and had a great time. And all of these actors that we'd used for Blade Runner, you know, many of them were in Dark Harbor in different costume and makeup and just terrorized him all night long. And by the time he left, he said, "Hey, by the way, there might be another project for you guys." And so he called me up, like, I think in middle of November, late November, and said, "We have this project, Westworld." And I was like, "Oh my God, Westworld, what a great show." It was after the first season. And he said, "But our New York office is going to be working on this. So I'm going to put you in touch with a gentleman named David Jacobson and the team that he's working there. So I got to work with David and Patrick and Trevor Guthrie, one of the owners there, and the whole team that they had there, Andy Chen, who designed the sets. And the beginning of the journey was sort of, they had sold to HBO and the showrunners that they wanted to build Westworld. They wanted to create the town of Sweetwater for this activation. And they had a location in mind already, a half an hour away from Austin, an old ghost town that they were going to build new sets that looked like the show on top of it. But they wanted us to do similar to Blade Runner, but different, because with Blade Runner, what the actors were largely atmospheric, and there was some light scripting to it, but it was really highly improvisational and very unstructured. What we wanted to do for Westworld is we wanted to create these 90-minute loops that would incorporate 50-plus actors and stuntmen working in 11 different locations across the 2 acres of this property. And some of these actors would be anchored in a specific location, like the Mariposa or the Coronado Hotel, or the fires, the blacksmith shop or the sheriff shop. And then some people were moving through the town. And so, I'd start asking questions. We'd start talking back and forth, collaborating between the two companies, and getting buy-in from the folks at HBO. And what was extraordinary on this project, again, going back to trust, is everybody, for the most part, just kept saying yes, and so it became very much yes and. That's great. What else can we do? And down to like bringing in live horses and deciding not to go cheap on costumes, but really to make everybody look like they really were from that world. Having to have the conversations with the characters have guns or not. Having the conversation of, can we have a gunshot or not? In a world where we just had the shooting in Las Vegas, for example. And all of the trust from the show to HBO's brilliant marketing team to Giant Spoon, our partners, to our team, and again, down to the actors, was extraordinary. And the only way to sort of like figure this thing out and what it could be was to start writing it, and to give the actors something to really hold on to and to really create who these characters were. And as Bonnie mentioned earlier with Chris Pratt, we couldn't write Dolores or Teddy or Dr. Ford or Bernard. We couldn't try to pass off any of our actors as being the actors from the show. So we developed this approach, which is that, the characters in our things are people that maybe are in the background, of the IP. They're people that are across the street, out of focus, down around the corner. They know the world. They know the characters in the world, but they're different characters. And then you have to create who those characters are and what their stories are and how their stories intersect and crash against each other. And so we did that, and we just started writing script, and I was communicating with actors who, of the 51 actors, 44 of them rather, were actors from Austin, Texas, who we'd never worked with before. Didn't know them from Adam until late December. We opened in early March. And once we got approvals and we were able to book their deals, just started emailing with them and having conversations and sending them script and sending them guidelines for interaction. And then we bugged out and we went to Texas, and we all went to all our friends, the 7 actors and our team, Bonnie and me and Tara and Lila, went out to dinner, and all of our actors that we knew were busting my balls the whole night. It's like, are we ever going to get a script for this thing? Are you going to send us any materials? And the first couple of times you're laughing and giggling, and then they're sort of getting maybe a little bit edgy, a little bit pissed off. It's like, you better be ready to go tomorrow. And we went home, and I drank a lot of wine because I was like, what the fuck have I done? I've written a 450-page script, and I'm working with 51 actors, and I don't know 44 of them. What's going to happen? And by the way, as Giant Spoon, who had built this incredible set and were there installing it for 3 weeks before us, were installing for 3 weeks, of which 18 of the 21 days were thunderstorms. So everybody was a little bit behind. And we're rehearsing scenes, and people are pounding in wood and moving, set dressing in.
You're going through puddles, checking through puddles, mud.
It was insane. And so I developed this system in my brain. I had sent them all the script. I'd done all of the staging, stage directions on paper, sent that to them. So I would stage a scene, and then Bonnie would follow behind, and work with the actors, and then Lila would follow behind and take any notes. Tara would stay ahead with me. And so we spoke to the whole group at the beginning, 51 actors, and then I staged the first scene, and I staged it. None of the actors that were involved in that scene got out their scripts. They all knew it. And I was like, oh, well, that's nice. Those guys really are underneath it. Then we did the second scene, the third scene, the fourth scene, the fifth scene. And of the 51 actors, with the exception of like 4 or 5 people, they were word perfect. 450 pages of script. And the other, 4 or 5 actors, whatever, that weren't there were close, and one of them was one of our friends who sidled up to me and said, I'll be off book by the end of the day. I was like, I know you will. It'll be great. Again, trust. And we trusted them to do the job, and we trusted each other, and we trust each other's teams. And I think for everybody involved in it, for our team, for the actors, for Giant Spoon, for HBO, I think this one will always live way up there in terms of great accomplishments. And it really opened the door for us, I think, in terms of between this and Blade Runner to this whole new world of doing things, and a new way of working, and a new level of trust in our actors as well. And we've sort of joked about creating this Mycotoo repertory company of actors that we're ever expanding to, but we often do use the same actors, because this type of performance is extraordinarily complex. It's different than film acting or stage acting, where you hit a mark and you play this really incredible scene.
And we've had actors that have come in and who are fantastic actors who don't quite get this.
They struggle at immersive acting. So much of this, we found at the end of the day, is what you need is somebody who's like good at a cocktail party, who's not afraid to walk up to somebody and shake their hand and say, hey, I'm David, how you doing? Hi, I'm Bonnie, nice to meet you, because you're inviting people in. Because really what it is at the end of the day is immersive acting is just leaving yourself alone and living your life. I didn't know 52 minutes ago what the hell I was going to say to you guys. And I didn't know when Bonnie was going to come in. I sort of had some structure. We had slides, but I hadn't really spelled out, I have to say exactly these words in this order. And Bonnie can only come in when she does that, and I can only interrupt her. We're just letting it go. And we do this every single day in our lives. But when you get into a theatrical thing, and especially when you're dealing with IP and IP holders and powerful studios, is like having the trust to do this. It takes a bit of letting go, and it was interesting. We found out when we were done with Westworld in particular that there was this one gentleman who had been watching for the 3 days we rehearsed. We only had 3 days, 2.5 days actually, of rehearsal before we were live in front of an audience. Again, 450 page script, 51 actors, 2 days rehearsal. But he watched us the whole time. I didn't know who he was or why he was watching, what the deal was. And I came to find at the end of the time that he was the head of marketing for HBO, and he was the one who had signed off on this whole thing, and was the person charged with the approvals that we sent to Giant Spoon. They approved, they sent up to HBO. And he just sat there. He never interrupted our flow. If there were notes, which I'm sure there were, it went through the proper channels, and he talked to the people at Giant Spoon. They talked to me. We'd figure it out. It was a great experience. That's all I can say. We've only got a couple of minutes left. Let's just sort of fly through some of these other ones. Blade for the Throne experience at South by Southwest was what we did again in Southwest the year after. And whereas Westworld was, they wanted us to create this entire world, that didn't exist, to bring Sweetwater to life. That was the last thing that the show people for Game of Thrones wanted to do, because they already had this incredibly deep lore in the TV show, this incredibly deep lore in George R.R. Martin's books. And the last thing they wanted was for us to come up with something new, while they'd already had audiences for 2 years going like, what is this going to happen? How's it going to resolve? So what we created for this, again, with Giant Spoon, was this notion of doing a blood drive with the Red Cross, which was incredible. This campaign for the throne that they worked on was brilliant, and they raised blood for the Red Cross all across the world, actually. Mm-hmm. Part of it was a sort of a RFID type of experience that you could walk through and see different scenes come to life, different moments from the show along the years. very cool and atmospheric. And then we had two major sort of showpieces. One was an interior oratorio that was 24 singers, 4 sopranos, 4 tenors, 4 baritones, 4 altos, and several musicians, and a red priestess character who was honoring the army of the living to go forth and do battle. And then we had an outdoor experience that was similar to Westworld in that we created this war camp that had characters from, you know, the Bravosi and the Free Folk, the Wildlings, some Lannister guards inside, and some of the Dothraki outside, people from the Starks who were fighting. And that was a very immersive experience where the actors and the guests could interact. So very different worlds and very complex. So again, trust and partnership and collaboration. Bonnie sort of took the interior and the oratorio and directed and shaped that thing, while I was outside with the war camp and working with those actors. And it was another just really wonderful experience. The Irishman, gentleman who I'd worked with at Giant Spoon, David Jacobson, was at a different company, Invisible North, and invited us to come help them do an activation where we brought Little Italy to life. We brought the world of the Irishman in 1975 New York to life. And they had an activation all over Little Italy. And they had different stores and cafes and pizzerias and stuff that would give away special things to the guests if they came in there and said, Jimmy Hoffa sent me. And then on this one street, we created this world where we had these 4 phone booths where if you picked up the phone, you'd hear a message from De Niro or Pesci or Scorsese or De Niro. We had these paper boys who were handing out these newspapers that had been completely created by Invisible North for this activation, that were every word, every dialogue, every word in this newspaper, all the ads and everything created just for this. It was spectacular. We had these limousines that were from the area that were brought in, and we had chauffeur drivers that would let people go into the car and do a confessional with them. Like this chauffeur driver was their priest, finding out if they knew anything about the crime. And then we had different actors who were paparazzi and construction workers and shop owners that also brought the street to life. And it was just incredible because, you know, if you're talking about Westworld or Game of Thrones or Blade Runner and all of our Halloween stuff, it's a gated experience. You know, you let people in, you control the flow and everything. This was live on the streets of New York City. And it was like, what is this going to be? And we rehearsed for a day and a half. And these actors that had to do the chauffeurs, I said to them, guys, don't feel bad if we only get 1 or 2 people to get inside the car, you know, the whole week, the whole 2 days, because, you know, it's New York City. Nobody's going to get inside this car. Don't bother newspaper boys and girls if they don't stop and want to interact with you. It's New York City. Within 15 minutes of the first day, it was just everybody was getting in the car. Everybody was stopping at the phone booth. Everybody was picking up a newspaper. Everybody started running all over Little Italy to find out where they could get a free calzone or a free slice of pizza or a free bottle of wine. And then social media took off. And by the end of the first day, it was just bananas. And then the second day of the thing was the highest concentration of people that had been in Little Italy for like a decade. So it ended up just being an extraordinary marketing stunt for Netflix in the film.
Right.
And Bonnie, I think we're about out of time. So there's, you know, we can sort of scroll through a couple of other things, but I do, if we can go to the last page real quick, these are a couple of other things we do. And they've all been incredibly fun, but I just want to land on this last page, which is again, One Team, One Dream. And I want to talk about, you know, it's not just the Mycotoo story or the Mycotoo and Giant Spoon or the Mycotoo and Epic Taren. It's not just David. It's not just David and Bonnie. We have this incredible team of people who work with us, writers, stage managers, supervisors, and of course, all of the actors. And all of the work we do is collaborative with them. They're part of our team. They're exceptional. We trust them, we love them, and we're deeply indebted to all the great work that they do with us.
Absolutely. And thank you guys. Thank you, TEA and Midsummer Scream. We are thrilled to be back and can't wait to talk more. And one of these days we'll all leave our houses and start creating art again.